Welcome to the FullFX Unfiltered with FXSpotStream, and we're in person. Alan Schwartz.
Finally.
It's Tom. I mean, this is amazing. What are we doing here? You know, it's
no more COVID.
No, exactly. Yeah. It is. It's great to be in your office and actually see you guys. Really wanted to just kick off by saying, like, you know, how's 2022 been for you guys? Because it's obviously a really good time in the foreign exchange industry generally. But, you know, it seems to me that, you know, you guys are holding and performing really well within that sort of parameter.
First, thank you for coming. Good to see you. I'm glad that, you know, hopefully we're getting, you know, to a point of normalcy where we can talk to people, see people. You can't replace face-to-face.
Yeah.
Listen, 2022 has been great. Market's been extremely volatile for all the reasons that we know. For us, you know, March of 2020, during the height of COVID, we had a record ADV. This March, interestingly enough, another record ADV. So we did over 70 billion. And what's interesting is we seem to have hit that, you know, plateau and then going from strength to strength, which is what we want to see. Through August, our volume's up 28% year on year, which is incredible. But also, you know, we're FXSpotStream, so spot is still a big percentage of our business, and that's up alone 21%. Swaps is up 53%, which is interesting. Forwards is up 21%, and we're doing a good amount of NDS, and that's up close to 500%. So the service continues to grow, and the volatility and what's going on in the market, dislocation, etc. But for us, it also is, we continue to grow by growing the offering, growing the client base, growing the jurisdictions. And that's what you have to do. So you get more diversified, volume comes from different places, different parts of the day, and it just really snowball effect.
So, I mean, is this happening across currency pairs and across you know, client types, this growth and jurisdictions?
Yeah, that's another good point. We've always, you know, when we started the business, we were focusing on the margin brokers. And today we still support all the margin brokers, and Japan is still a very, very important business. We have very good relationships there. But we've diversified quite a bit in terms of jurisdictions, in terms of pairs, in terms of products, in terms of clients. And that, again, is what's helping us, right? Because you can just see it, for example, when there's a holiday in one part of the world, you know, you can see the volume goes down a little bit, but the rest of the country picks it up. Or when there's something, you know, happening in a particular region, you see the currency pairs fluctuate. And so I think our goal has always been focus on our core business, which is spot, but make sure that we add to it. You know, that we don't want to be a one-trick pony that only services one client, one segment, one region, but rather continue to be really a one-stop shop. And if that's our goal, we have got to start it.
Yeah. And Tom, I guess like the big ticket item for you guys last year was algos. How's that gone in that? I guess it's just over a year now, isn't it?
Yeah. Since July, we went live last July with 14 providers. We've added 10 clients have now integrated, certified, and gone live on that suite. They've used 32 of the 70 algos that we offer. You know, the API itself supports a total of 70 across the 14, with like over 200 parameterized options. The client base to date has used 32 of those things. And we see it continues to be an area of focus and investment for those suite providers. And so, you know, we are committed to keeping up with their changes. So, you know, this year we've been upgrading APIs as some of them have given us new versions. Some of them have added new algos, so we're supporting those. The NDF capabilities continues to expand, so we're evolving with that. And some people have added things like, you know, some didn't support fixings that now do, some provide new fixing source options, things like that. So that's kept us busy, and you know, and we want to continue to make those investments because we're committed and obligated really to ensure that the latest and greatest from our providers is available to the clients that are coming to them through our API.
And that's, I mean, 32 actually is a little bit surprising to me.
Pretty good coverage.
Yeah, because, you know, and a lot of the time in this world, it's a lot narrower window. So
Yeah, and it's been great to have clients because now we've gotten a lot of very valuable and thoughtful input.
Yeah.
So we've been able to improve the API both in terms of how we normalize the API to make it easier for clients across all the different ways they've been implemented by the providers, but also inputs around things like we want to have some default values, make it easier for our traders to be onboarded. So can you do things like execution venue? We just want all the venues.
Yeah.
We're not going to pick and choose. So just default it to everything, right? Things like execution style. How aggressive is this algo? Well, we never really want to be too passive. We never really want to be too aggressive. Generally, by default, can you just kind of pick one of the moderate settings and then just send that out, that way? So. That's kind of been the focus of our attention in this particular product suite to date. The other thing, a little bit caught us by surprise, was the plumbing that goes on after the fact. Reconciliation, settlement.
There's a heck of a lot goes on after.
After
you click that button.
Yeah, because we've sort of broadened the client base for algos through an API. People who would normally only come through an API are now in there, and so there was a little bit of a mismatch between the way their settlement and risk systems needed things to work and the way the banks wanted to settle and confirm. Right, so some of these clients need pretty much every execution to get confirmed and settled. And the banks, for obvious reasons, wanted to settle at a net level.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of work on the provider side, our side, client side, to make sure that things line up properly. So after you submit your order, things actually end up in the accounts where they're supposed to be.
I've heard that's a good thing.
Right.
I can tell you it's a bad thing if it doesn't.
Generally a good thing. Right. The other big thing is we've now added it to our GUI.
Yeah.
So all of the 70 algos are supported in our GUI, along with the ability to do a post-trade allocation at the end of the algo execution. So, we continue to see growing interest from clients that want to have API access to algos. It's still a unique and differentiated product, and I think that draws customers to us. They hear about it, they want it, and they don't really have, it's a good product, and they don't really have a lot of other options at the moment other than directly integrating, which is a little painful.
Yeah. So, in terms of the growth of the algos, and the GUI, I would imagine, gave you a bit of a bump because, I totally take your point around people liking the API version, but there's a lot of pre-trade work that goes into people and they just like to see it on the screen in front of them, don't they? So, has that been a big driver?
Well, so actually, the GUI just launched a couple months ago. And in August, on algos, we had a record ADV, 500 million. And that maybe is tiny is GUI. So I expect, as you're thinking, the bump will come. And in fact, we have now a nice pipeline of clients who want to use the GUI. And those clients, several that will transition to the API. Which is why people also say, well, why did you start with the GUI versus the API? We're an API shop. And eventually you're going to do all that stuff for the GUI anyway, so let's go somewhere. And the API, again, when Tom and I talked about this, let's do all the algos in the API, the board looked at us and said, what are you guys doing? Really? You want to still have a job? And fortunately for us, COVID happened, and it just accelerated the adoption. But timing was perfect, huge effort. Tom and his team did a great job. Took us a couple of years, but now it's perfect. And now we have the API, which is super unique, and now we have the GUI, and that combination. If we talk a year from now, I expect the volume. It's not going to be 50-50, but I think the volume will continue to probably be larger on the API than the GUI. But you have to have it. It's a good transition, and some people will just always stay in the GUI.
So what do you think are the underlying drivers of growth?
So listen, the market impact, market leakage, better execution, we have nothing to do with that. Right? As you know, the algos are not our algos; they're the bank's algos. There's the client sent the order, etc. More and more people are realizing, and we see evidence of that algos, in fact, can help in that regard. But interestingly enough, we have clients who they say, oh, that's going to be a part of my toolkit, but not the only tool that I have in my kit. So we have clients that are still using disclosed and they're doing algos. And so, it's not obviously the amount of volume going through algos that you see in the equity space, but it's growing because people are getting more comfortable. They're seeing evidence of, okay, I'm going to have better execution. Even though there's a cost, we don't charge clients anything, but the banks do. The execution is better. Market impact, you see the different information leakage, et cetera. And if we come back to COVID, there's no doubt, at least in my mind, is there some objective evidence? I probably can't give it to you. But I think the fact that people were working from home and, there was a concern about who's monitoring this thing? Is this reliable? Is it resilient? As you're there down in your basement and your neighbors watching Netflix, as it brings down your whole internet, that's part of it. And people became comfortable, and it's allowed them to actually deal with working from home, but still be able to do business. So obviously technology, as time goes on, the adoption cycle gets condensed. Here, there's no doubt that algos would be where they are at some point in time, but certainly the adoption got accelerated.
It was the making.
No
they were proven during those market conditions in March 2021.
Correct.
It was. I think that's the algo people that I speak to. Just they said, well, we got a real life test and we passed it with flying colours, and I think that has definitely driven more adoption.
Correct. And not only that, but that I think the transition from GUI to API is also going to be accelerated because of that. They say, well, hold on a second, why don't we just automate this thing, right? I mean, do we really need to use a GUI? So I think, not because we're so, perfect in our timing, got lucky again, and it was just perfect, and timing is everything.
It's better to be lucky than good.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
So, to close out then, what's on the agenda now for the next sort of 12 to 18 months? Obviously, Tom, you mentioned the architecture work and upgrade there. What should we look forward to from you guys?
So we've got our banks all across in New York, and we've just earlier this month, late last month, started moving clients over. So that is starting to pick up momentum. We're about 70% ready in London, so expect early next month to start moving some clients in London. Tokyo is a bit behind. We'll probably, we're going to get to that after we do London. It's a big lift, right? It's a shift in the entire client base to a new architecture. So we're going, New York, London, Tokyo. So we're just about there in London, Tokyo to follow. It's a big project. It's really consuming a lot of people's attention. But so far, going pretty well.
And what would be the key differences that we would see?
It's really very focused on market data latency.
Right.
That's really the entire focus. So the objective and the promise is that, and our focus has been not so much on let's get to zero, but hey, let's handle volatile market conditions like some of the stuff we've been seeing. Can we, during a Powell speech or a surprise rate increase or a payroll number that's off the charts, manage to keep market data latencies as measured from when it hits our network from the provider to when it's leaving our network to the client to a 250 microsecond max. That's our goal.
Okay. And to one of our earlier points, I think we will look back at the last 6-7 years as being the outlier in terms of FX market activity. I think what we see now is potentially a new norm. It won't be quite as crazy, but there will definitely be busier markets. You will have those bursts.
And we see it, more frequently. So before we had, maybe the U.S. election, we had Brexit, we had these little pockets. Now the pockets seem to be more the rule than the exception. In addition to what Tom mentioned, and you asked about what's next, so we'll finish up on the market data part of it, and then we'll look at orders, right? And then we'll look at executions. But we still have a good amount of work to do on the market data, and that really was our focus first because we want to get that to the client as quickly as possible. And if we can hit that target of 250 mics during the busiest max.
Yep.
Then when it's quiet, maybe 50 mics, etc. And we're right in the middle now. Now we have clients migrated in New York of measuring that. And so far, looks really good. But while we work on that humongous project, and it is a big project, we continue to run the business.
Yeah.
And in terms of running the business, this year we rolled out our analytics suite, a spread overview report that allows clients to look at all the spreads. It makes that simple, super powerful, but to look at the spreads they're getting from all the banks and be able to, as a disclosure service, have that conversation.
Yeah.
So our analytics suite continues to be more and more robust. And low latency, a huge project. Analytics, another big project. But we're also now looking at adding more to the product offering. We have everything supported on a streaming and on an RFS basis, RFS, RFQ. We're looking now to facilitate streaming of swaps. We have it today on an RFS basis. Not a small project either. It'll be next year, don't know yet because it depends on all these other bits. So again, we look at the infrastructure work, we look at the analytics work, we look at the functional product work. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. Those are kind of the silos that we look at. And it goes back to the beginning of your question, which is, when we look at our volumes, we want to make sure that we focus on all the little pockets, all the little bits, and making sure that, as much as possible, we are moving everything in parallel, as opposed to saying, we're not going to look at this piece of the business, we'll look at it some other time, right? Obviously, you make priorities, but our goal always is to focus on the core business and then do the rounding on it.
Well, I wish you luck with that. Nice to know you're going to be busy. I hate to think of you sitting there twiddling your thumbs.
Can't do that.
Thanks for joining us. Thanks to all of our viewers, and we'll be back again soon.
Good to see you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you,
We
sir.
can do this.
Appreciate it.